trying to figure out, you know, why would any guy want to come on a radio show and say, yeah, we should have more weapons that kill lots and lots of people really, really fast on the streets of America? It seems crazy. The argument that Brett Kavanaugh is making, well, let me back up and just, you know, repeat a little riff that I just did during the break. Congress doesn't have the time, right? I mean, you got the whole spectrum of America that Congress has to worry about, everything from budgets to guns, to the environment, to food, to, I mean, you name it, right? Congress doesn't have the time to be saying, well, nitrates in meat cause cancer. How much nitrate would be an acceptable amount? Oh, there's another chemical that causes cancer in processed meats. And by the way, we know this to be the case now. How much, you know, should that be? So what Congress does is they say to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, you do the studies, you bring in the expert witnesses, you take the thousands of hours of testimony. We don't have the ability to do this. We're Congress. You do that, and you come up with regulations and rules that will appropriately keep the public safe from getting colorectal cancer when they, or breast cancer, or prostate cancer when they eat processed meats. They say to the EPA, you bring forward the expert witnesses and you determine if carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. They don't even say if carbon. You determine what greenhouse gases are and you figure out how to regulate them because we don't have the time, nor do we have the expertise. And they say to the Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, you are authorized, and this was back in the 1920s or 1930s when ATF was created, you are authorized, you know, Bonnie and Clyde are out there shooting people up, John Dillinger and whatnot, we got a problem, you guys call the expert witnesses, you figure out what kind of guns should be legal or illegal in the United States and what gun accessories associated with them and what kind of bullets and you know, should we have 50 caliber guns and should we have, you know, should people be able to hold shoulder-fired launchers and et cetera, et cetera. You make that decision. You regulate guns, ATF. Now, comes along these lawyers from the Federalist Society, and I don't think Craig DeLuz has any association with them, but because he's just a gun guy. But the logic that they're saying is, and Brett Kavanaugh actually ruled this way. He was overruled. It was a 3-judge panel on the D.C. Circuit. He was one vote out of 3, and he lost. But the argument that he made with regard to greenhouse gases was that because the legislation that authorizes the Environmental Protection Agency to look into greenhouse gases doesn't specifically say, and by the way, please regulate carbon dioxide. Because the legislation doesn't say that. Instead, it says, you guys bring in the experts, you figure out what's going on. We don't have the time to do it. But because the legislation didn't name carbon dioxide, Brett Kavanaugh said, therefore the EPA cannot regulate it. Which is exactly the same thing that Craig DeLuz is saying, because the ATF's authorizing legislation that says you regulate guns doesn't specifically mention bump stocks. They can't be regulated. In my mind, this is a complete BS argument, both from Brett Kavanaugh with regard to the EPA and with Craig DeLuz with regard to ATF.